before I go any further with this life, there's something I need to say. I turned 81 this year. And somewhere between the quiet mornings and the slower evenings, I realized something unsettling. You don't feel old on the inside. You feel the same thoughts, the same memories, the same voice in your head. The only difference is that the world begins to move past you a little faster than it used to. And one day you notice you've become the observer instead of the participant. That realization doesn't arrive with drama. It arrives quietly, like dust settling in a room you forgot to enter. People think getting older is about aches and medication and early dinners. That's the surface of it. What no one tells you is this: aging is mostly about subtraction, not just of strength, but of noise, of illusion, of distraction. The older you get, the more life strips away what never truly mattered. And what remains can either terrify you or free you. If you're in your 40s or 50s listening to me, you still believe time is expandable. You postpone conversations. You delay forgiveness. You assume there will be another summer, another holiday, another chance to say what you meant to say. I used to think that way too. I thought life was a long hallway with endless doors. It isn't. It's a series of rooms. And once you leave one, you don't re-enter it. Before I go, no, not from this earth, but before I go any further into the final stretch of my years, I want to tell you what survived the decades. The first thing that survived was character. Not reputation, not status, not the stories people told about me. Those faded. What remained was who I became while chasing those things, the discipline I built, the patience I resisted, the kindness I chose, or failed to choose. At 50, I thought my value was tied to productivity. At 60, I thought it was tied to security. At 70, I began to understand that none of those follow you into the quiet. Character does. When the phone stops ringing as much, when the invitations slow down, when your name isn't mentioned in rooms you once influenced, you are left with yourself. And if you don't respect that man in the mirror, old age becomes a heavy place to sit. The second thing that remained was love, but not in the way I expected. Love is not possession. I learned that too late. You don't own your spouse. You don't own your children. You don't even own your closest friends. You are given time with them. That's all. Temporary stewardship. And when I stopped viewing people as permanent fixtures and started seeing them as temporary gifts, something shifted. Loss stopped feeling like theft. It started feeling like completion. If you are holding on to someone tightly right now out of fear, loosen your grip. Experience them instead of guarding them. Speak openly. Sit longer. Put the phone down. Presence is the only form of ownership that doesn't create regret. Another thing that survived the years was regret, but it changed shape. In my younger years, regret felt sharp and dramatic. Now it feels instructional. I regret not taking more risks when failure would have been survivable. I regret staying silent when I should have defended someone. I regret choosing pride over peace more times than I can count. But here's what I learned. Regret is not the enemy. It's unfinished courage. If you're in your 40s, this is your window. If you're in your 50s, it's still open, but it narrows. The risks you don't take now become the stories you replay later. I don't regret working hard. I regret working without balance. I don't regret striving. I regret striving without gratitude. I don't regret loving. I regret withholding it when it mattered most. Before I go further into the years I have left, I've made peace with something else. Relevance is temporary. There comes a moment when you realize the world is designed to replace you. New ideas, new faces, new energy. At first, that realization bruises the ego. You think, have I been forgotten? But then a deeper truth settles in. You were never meant to stay at the center. Life is a relay, not a throne. When I watch younger generations rush past, I don't feel resentment anymore. I feel relief. My job is not to compete with them. It's to witness, to guide when asked, to step back without bitterness. And there is a quiet dignity in that. What also remains, perhaps most unexpectedly, is the relationship you build with yourself. For decades, I avoided silence. I filled it with work, television, obligations, errands, anything to avoid sitting alone with my thoughts. But age forces stillness. And in that stillness, you meet yourself honestly. If you don't like who you are at 80, you cannot blame circumstance anymore. There are no bosses left to blame, no deadlines, no rivals, just you. Thankfully, I learned to forgive myself before bitterness settled in. I forgave the impatient man I was at 35. I forgave the stubborn man I was at 50. I forgave the distracted father I sometimes became during stressful years. If you are still young enough to adjust your habits, do it now. Do not wait for your body to slow you down before your mind matures. And then there is gratitude, not the shallow kind people post online, the deep kind that arrives when you realize how improbable your existence is. I have seen over 29,000 sunrises. I have eaten meals I cannot remember, laughed at jokes long forgotten, held hands that are no longer here. The fact that any of it happened at all feels miraculous now. You spend your youth chasing extraordinary moments, promotions, big purchases, grand celebrations. But when you sit quietly at 81, what replays in your mind are smaller things. A cup of coffee on a rainy Tuesday, a drive with no destination, a conversation that lasted longer than planned, a simple, "I'm proud of you." The mountain peaks were impressive, but the walk between them, that was life. Before I go any further into these later years, I no longer chase importance. I chase clarity. I ask myself one question most mornings. If today were ordinary, would I still be grateful? And most days, the answer is yes. So if you're listening and you still believe you have endless time, let me gently interrupt that illusion. Time is generous, but it is not infinite. The habits you build now become the environment you live in later. Build patience. Build humility. Build forgiveness. Build presence. Because when the noise fades, and it will, you will want something solid left standing inside you. Before I go, I want to leave you with this. Do not wait for old age to simplify your life for you. Simplify it yourself. Say what needs to be said. Take the trip. Make the call. Release the grudge. Sit in silence without reaching for distraction. Look at the people around you as temporary miracles. One day, you will sit where I sit now, and you won't care about being right. You won't care about winning arguments. You won't care about impressing anyone. You will care about whether you lived awake. I am 81. I am not at the end, but I am far enough down the road to see what truly lasts. And what lasts is rarely what we spend our best years chasing. If this spoke to you, carry it with you today. Not tomorrow. Today. And if you're still fortunate enough to have someone in your life you haven't fully appreciated, start there. Before you go any further, live in a way your older self will thank you for.